I was born with a controller in my hands. Nintendo Entertainment System was pretty much unknown when it first launched. When they were setting up, some people actually were like, oh, if you're from Atari, but like, no, from Nintendo. So video games was introduced in 1972, both at home and then in arcades. Arcades were popular in the late 70s or early 80s as a teenager hangout space. Then you have all these additional games such as Donkey Kong, Pac-Man, these arcade games that really like increase awareness and passion for games. Kids were spending their quarters in arcade games, they're spending their money, their time. Atari also developed its own system, the 2600. There were so many games that were being made, and you had tons of software that were unvetted, poor quality, and they were making it as fast as they can, and then consumers were like, I don't know what's good or not, and retailers were afraid to make investments into video game systems. So when Nintendo came on board in 1985, it changed the video game industry. If you had allowance money, would you want to save it up to buy a Nintendo game, or would you want to spend it on quarters? In 1985, Nintendo launches its new home console system in New York, figuring they can make it there, it can make it anywhere. Nintendo Entertainment System cost roughly around $170. But when it launched nationwide, basic sets usually cost less than $100. Nintendo Entertainment System was described by employees when they saw it for the first time as a lunchbox. It was front-loading. That was very similar to the VCR. Most systems came with controllers, two controllers, which were also unique in themselves, that they had a D-pad, which we call today an up, down, left, and right. You had 4 inputs, so that gave you a lot more options. Nintendo had a program where they put in a seal of quality on each box and to say like, we are backing this project. Nintendo wasn't alone in the marketplace, but I think it established this level of confidence not only for consumers, but also retailers to invest in its products and to market it. Sales would double, triple, and by the end of 1990, there was one person claimed that there was a Nintendo in a third of homes across America. The games had to be of the highest quality, they had to be fun, it had to be compelling to play, like you had to have it. Prior to Super Mario Brothers, a lot of games didn't really have narratives. You were chasing for a high score, or you were trying to beat the game. In Donkey Kong, which is predecessor of Super Mario Brothers, that was one of the earliest games, some people say the first, to have a narrative. Super Mario Bros. There were actually 8 worlds, and you were traversing through the Mushroom Kingdom to save Princess Peach. And there were actually some humorous moments where you think like, oh, you saved the princess. You're like, oh, sorry, the princess is actually in another castle. And so the narrative wasn't overly complicated, but there was a clear goal, what you were trying to achieve. Nintendo was significantly different in how it looked. Atari had, very dark, very simplistic graphics. When you started Super Mario Brothers, it was a bright blue sky. That was definitely nothing you would have seen on Atari. You could run and jump, you could shoot and jump and stuff like that, so that made the game a little bit more complicated. There were definitely tricks that I think a lot of players exploited, and it also became a contest to see who could beat the game the fastest too. They established a fan club at the beginning, and then they eventually started the magazine, which is Nintendo Power, and they were creating this awareness of games that I think, unlike other consoles before, it came to the point where actually Mario was more recognizable than Mickey Mouse in 1990. Anything that you could put Mario's face on, they did. So I was the youngest of 3 boys. So I would watch my brother play a lot, especially some of the more complicated games. One of my earliest memories is waking up in bed, my brother kneeling next to my bed, asking me if you want to play Bubble Bobble, which is one of our favorite games growing up. And I was like, yeah, I just ran downstairs, and we would play together. Playing just one aspect of the video game, but also the watching and communication between family, friends, and communities. Unlike movies or other forms of media, you actually have agency. Like, you can do what you need to do to save the princess, and that can be very powerful, especially if you're a kid, your parents are telling you what to do, or you can't do this or can't do that. Well, in the game, I could do that, At the end of the day, it's all about play, it's just allowing you to have fun. And I think, have fun is central to the experience of human beings, so.